So hi everyone, let me share with you a little hypothetical situation. Let's say 40 years from now you're married to the sweetheart that you did take to Arby's and you asked her out on a nice romantic evening on my last speech. And your oldest daughter brings home a man and you really like him and they're going to get married. Your younger daughter brings home someone you don't know what to think about him. So, what's the best policy? He's already burned your house, lost your cat, acted like a fool in front of your entire extended family. The only way to really see if this guy's right for your daughter is the lie detector. And that's what Christian, Rylan, and myself will be talking about today. We're actually going to talk to you a little bit about lie detectors, a little bit about how you might be able to get around a lie detector test. And we're going to talk about some ways that aren't exactly conventional, like the polygraph. The polygraph actually is the biggest way to test for lies. You actually start with some control questions, and these questions could be anywhere from, is your name Zachary Schorr, to do you own a gun? Have you ever smoked a cigarette? And they're all pretty much multiple choice questions, but over the course of your polygraph test, they'll ask you these control questions just to see how it affects the readings. Which brings me to my next point. The readings are actually triggered from usually 3 spots, which are blood pressure, which is the thing on your arm, breathing rate, which will go around your stomach and ultimately determine how fast your rate changes, and heart rate. Now there are other ones that are not on this picture, such as perspiration rate or even nonverbal cues, such as head movement, eye movement, but they're not as exact or precise. So when you're asked a question that is that you should tell the truth to, which is a control question, it reacts a certain way on the polygraph reader. And when you're asked a question that makes you a little nervous, a little jumpy, your heart rate shoots up, your breathing rate may change a little, and your blood pressure sure goes up because your heart rate went up. Now, I'm going to pass this off to Rylan, and he's going to tell you a couple foolproof ways, perhaps, that will get you around the polygraph test.
Alright, so I'm going to talk to you about how some of the methods we have to pass the polygraph test. Now, initially, there's always the way you can refuse to take the test. Now, this is a great way if you're trying to get a job to get off that list immediately, but if you already have the job, refusing, you're not actually allowed to get fired for refusing the polygraph test. So, another way would be simple pain. You know, a lot of people, if you've seen Ocean's 13, you put a tack in your shoe, and whenever you're answering a truthful question, you put your foot down, and it hurts, and it makes all those things jump up, and it looks like you're lying, and when you're telling a lie, you just don't initiate the pain. And the final way is to fill your thoughts with happy thoughts. So whenever you're answering a lie, you fill your mind with happy dogs or puppies and things like that. There's a lot of preparation that needs to go in to passing a polygraph test. So, but there's a lot of thought process to going in. You need to know what they're kind of asked for, what they're looking for, what the tester is going to try to get you on. You can look into how your breathing process works, how you react yourself when you're trying to lie. A lot of people have known to try to even put antiperspirant on their hands to avoid sweating too much, or they think about how much they breathe. People try to control their breathing process in order to try to pass the test when they're lying. But really, the true only best way to pass the polygraph test is, in fact, the George Costanza way. If anyone ever watched Seinfeld, and that is just, if you believe it, then it is true. And but here we go. I'm going to pass you on to Christian for the final information about our polygraph tests.
So polygraph tests aren't 100% accurate. This is something that all known studies have shown. But what's really interesting is that the National Academy of Sciences did a study on all of the studies conducted about polygraph tests. And of the 80 they looked at, they found out that only 23 were actually of any real scientific merit. So that's 57 polygraph tests, or studies about polygraph tests that just weren't really worth, paying attention to. And so this is really one of the main points of contention within the lie detection industry. Really, we just don't really have a good way of detecting lies. But one of the quotes is that even if it's 80% accurate, even if the polygraph test is say 80% accurate at detecting who's a spy, that leaves, well, it's just not good. And basically, because of statistics, if you have a company with say 10,000 people and 10 of them are spies, then the polygraph test will report that 8 of the spies are actually spies, and there will be 1,992 false negatives, or false positives. And that's just because of the way statistics works, and that we'd really need an extremely high accuracy rate for the polygraph test for this to actually be useful. And so really, polygraph test isn't even really that accurate. And when it is accurate, it's just not useful because of the relative probabilities of guessing a polygraph based on how many spies are in your company. So this leads us to some other methods of lie detection that have been put into place or are being considered to make up for the fact that the polygraph test itself just isn't very good. So first, we have the fMRI, and what this does is it monitors your brain while you're actually talking about, while you're answering questions. So if the lie areas of your brain light up while you're lying, then obviously they can tell. Just like there's a special truth portion of your brain. So basically, depending on what areas of your brain are being active while you're answering questions, they're able to tell if you are lying or telling the truth. But even this can be beaten if you keep your brain in constant activity. So if the whole time you're being asked questions, you're just thinking constantly truths and lies at the same time, just making up stories, you can just pretty much make the polygraph test inconclusive. And this was actually shown on Mythbusters, so that was pretty cool. Another method that's being tried out that was reported by Wired and CNN is just facial heat detection. So they do thermal imaging of your face, and based on if you're telling the truth or a lie, your face actually changes temperature, and this is supposedly more accurate and better to use than the standard polygraph test. But again, not a lot of studies have been done, so it just really needs to work its way out there. We conclude.
It's up to you. So to wrap this up, I'd just like to point out that lie detection is an art that we've taken years to perfect. In fact, in 1895, that was the first known recording from a polygraph. But over the course of 107 years, 117 years, this art's just still imperfect. We've added perspiration monitors, we've added heat, facial heat responders, and at the end of the day, a great process still falls short of being able to be admitted into the court of law. So now we'd like to take any questions that you may have about lie detection, polygraph, and/or George Costanza. Thank you.